Hey people, Anthony, 4P4 Diesel. Quick coolant flush. You might have seen this one in an inspection video and it was pretty light coloured. So first thing we do is, when it's not under pressure, remove the cap. This is something else you'll need to remove. A little 3/8 drive ratchet or something like that will do the job. So remove that cap there. We've already removed the plug. This is the little plug. You don't have to remove it. You just need to back it off a couple of turns. But I just like to remove it. Leaves a bigger hole and everything can come out faster. So it's already drained. I'm just going to show you where that goes. And then we're going to take off the next most important drain plug. There's also a block plug. So down here in front of the passenger side front wheel, just going to go in here and have a look. You can just reach in there usually. And you can see the drain plug there. So normally it will just drain out the bottom hole, but of course I've taken the plug out, so it's still draining anyway. You're out in the sunlight, so this is the hard one actually. So I'm going to try and show you where, I'm going to tell you where it is first. If you look down, see the oil, this is the oil filter, down under the oil filter, it's down lower, it's on the oil cooler. So this piece of alloy housing down the bottom there, you'll see a drain tube, and you'll go, oh, is there meant to be? No, there's no tube meant to be there, but that's where the coolant's going to come out. You find a brass plug, so you're going to need something like a 10 mil, I use a 10 mil quarter drive and extension. You can't get a direct line to it. It's a bit difficult to get to. You might have a better tool to get to it yourself, and I'm not going to be able to video while I'm trying to reach down there, but my arm's basically going to go down behind this extra fuel filter line, through that gap there, right? Down underneath, behind the oil filter, right down the bottom there, and I'll be holding my ratchet sort of down here somewhere with my right hand to crack that little brass. It's a tapered seat, so don't over tighten it, but we only need to open up about a turn or so, just to let the block drain also. So we're going to do that now. Find it there. Where is it? I mean, I've done it, I've loosened it, but where is it? We can see coolant leaking there somewhere, can't we? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It's there somewhere. Look, you can see all the coolant's leaking down there, right? You can see it's definitely working, but where is it? You might have seen it in the camera. I'm just going to muck around here and try and hope that I've got the camera in the right spot so that we've seen it, but I can't actually see what I'm doing, all right? So that's the block plug. We're going to let that and the radiator drain till it finishes draining out. You're probably going to need about 8 litres. Okay, you can see, well, it's certainly working. It's draining both front and rear. You can see those two streams coming down, and you can see it's very light in colour. That's why we're changing it. It was kind of like really urgent, because if you haven't got the right mix in there, it's not going to be protecting your radiator, your whole cooling system, you know, your heater core in the dash, your Welsh plugs, your head gaskets, your alloys, everything. It's going to rust and corrode away and cause problems in the long term. I know I had the camera the wrong way, so I'm going to try and get it around the right, keep it the right way and see what happens. Let's see, am I in the right spot? I reckon I should be. Should be looking bang right at it. I can see all this coolant leaking down over there. It's very awkward to get down here, so hopefully you press the like button if you like, mate. I put in the effort to show you. We're draining the coolant at the moment. That's all we need to worry about, draining the coolant. So I've just used this little 3/8 drive breaker bar to crack this loose. We need to take this out. We're just preparing, while it's draining, we're just preparing. Sit that there, then we won't lose it. We know where it's at. Because what's going to happen, once we get the plugs in, don't start pouring coolant in yet. No, go straight out the bottom, you numbnuts. All right, once we get the plugs back in, when it's finished draining, we're going to quickly run through why we're not going to flush it, right? So you don't know, depending where you are, you don't know what's in your water, and you never get all the coolant out. So we don't want to add water, and then we've got a diluted mix. So what we need to do is, just like this, let it drain. Then we're going to put the plugs in. If you've got a filthy system that's rusty, corroded, it's had the wrong coolant, different story, mate. Pull all this stuff off, do the BFE job, pull the water pump out, flush everything out. You might even remove the thermostat, make sure you get everything out, and then use some compressed air and blow the rest of the coolant out as much as you can and start from scratch. This isn't that bad. This isn't it's a reasonably clean, you know what I mean? You can see it's not got a coating like the bottom of a dam or something like that up in the, you know, up in regional wherever, you know. It's clean, so we don't need to flush it. So as soon as it's finished draining, plugs go back in. We're going to slowly pour coolant in here. And what's going to happen, because it can't get past the thermostat quickly, it will fill up and it will come backwards up through the other side here and back through this hose. And that's the idea of that, and it'll bleed through this hole here. And for that to work, there's actually a mark on here. I'm going to try and see the B line. See, you reckon B's for bleeding? Anyway, because the normal level, that's low, that's full. Things expand when they're hot and they go down. So it's going to be, If you're somewhere in between, when it's cold, it might be overfull. When it's hot, that's all right. If there's too much in there, all it's going to do is push it out this overflow here, make a bit of mess, and you rinse it off with some water, right? And that's how we're going to leave this one today. I'm going to give it back to the customer with a little bit overfull. That way, worst case scenario, it pushes some out, makes a mess. He just puts some water here and washes it off, rather than end up low. And he's got, you know, the coolant down the bottom here, like we see a lot of cars come in after other people have worked on them. Coolant's low because whoever didn't really bleed it properly. And of course, not a big deal. It's only going to be low, half a litre, a litre. It's not going to cook the engine, anything like that. But let's just get the level right so that it looks good on the next video. Anyway, keep it topped up to the B line until it takes at least about 8 litres. And then after that, if you don't want to waste coolant, you've got to be careful not to overfill it. You've got to make sure your thermostat's open. It takes a number of heating, cooling cycles. So what I recommend to check the level is once you've done your first initial bleeding it, that's pour it in really. I mean, most of the air comes out when you pour it in if you follow this procedure. Then cap it up, drive the car, get it up to normal operating temp, and then just come back, switch it off, let it cool down. When it cools down, it'll all contract and go down a little bit, and just make sure you're at the full line. Do that a couple of times. So again, I put it back to the customers saying, look, you know, I can do this. I'm going to spend 3-4 hours doing this. So I do it once. I do it 99%. But I say, look, every day when it's cold, pop the bonnet, have a look. Worst case scenario, it's not going to happen. Worst case scenario, it's either going to be over full still, no problem. It'll push it out. Don't worry about it. Little bit, get your garden hose on shower and just give it a bit of a shower around here to rinse that off, and don't worry about it. You know, it's all good. Worst case scenario, it's a bit low. We can either come back, get some coolant, or just add a bit of water, because a tiny bit of water to bring that up to there isn't really going to make any difference whatsoever. You've seen how weak this mix really was. Even looking at it drain, you could see how watery it was, and that's why, to be quite honest, I said, you know, this is kind of like, I want this done now. I want it done yesterday, so it's getting done now. Actually spotted it. Look at that, right? I'm going to zoom that. Let's have a look. You can actually see it from up here. Depending on the light situation, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but on the left side of that oil filter, past that. Yeah, I think you can actually see it on camera, right? So it's like it's taken a big long pee. This 1 kd's taken, it's once every 2 years. See, 1 kd is what they do. They need to take a pee every 2 years. So it's not like us blokes where we've got to drain it. They say don't hold it, right? You know, drain it, right? With a 1 kd, it's got to be every 2 years, drop the coolant. Once they get a bit older, you never get it all out. So every 2 years, that's kind of like a flush, if you know what I mean. The coolant certainly lasts longer than that, but you don't actually get it all out. It's still going. Okay, this one's finished, so we can put the plug back in. There's nothing happening here. It is actually still going. Look at it. Have a look at it there. Still going. Where is it? Can't see it. You know, oh yeah, there it is down there. There it is. Still going. Even though anyway, let's plug up the radiator while we're waiting. Pouring the coolant in now. Look at the color of that. Isn't that just beautiful compared to what there was before, right? This is what we're using in case people want to ask. Genuine parts. Then we're all using the same thing, because the most important thing is that we're not getting coolant mixes. It's even more important. We don't want mixes, right? So what's happening now is, hopefully, fingers crossed, slowly, this should drain down. See, look at it. It's taken off. It's down to there. All of a sudden, it's sort of taken off. It's dropping down. I've got to keep pouring. So you've seen someone pour coolant before. If you haven't, it's in our other videos. Go check them out. So there's 5 litres in, as you can see. Beautiful, look at that. Now we're going to need to work towards getting another 3 in there before we bother to turn the key. And I might have forgot to tell you, of course I used the 10mm, and I put that brass plug back in when it finished draining. I didn't take it out, I just backed it off a couple of turns. I just nipped it up, and as soon as it's seated, I just give it a little nip by hand. I'm guessing it's going to be about 8 to 10 Newton meters. Don't over tighten it, because it's brass, which is hard. It'll rip the alloy out if you get crazy on it. But I've never known anyone to have a problem, so don't be afraid of it either. It's just a tapered seat, just nip it up nicely. 5 litre coolant container, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What's left? What did I say? Let me get it up so you can see it, right? 1, 2, it's pretty much right on the 2 litre line. All right, people, what's 5 minus 2 equals 3. Add 3 to 5, empty containers over here, right? Equals 8, right? 8 litres. That's what I said. Now let's go have a look at the car. Yep, it's a little bit over full. I think we talked about that. It's been sitting like that a little while, hasn't it? Nothing budging. We can put more in there, but I think that this cooling system is fairly full. And if somebody says the book says 9, 10, or 11, or 12, or 15, or 20, I don't care what the book says. Transmissions, engines, coolant, whatever, you never get it all out. This is how much you get out when you drain it properly. It's always an 80-90% thing, and this is why you do it every 2 years. Now, when the vehicle was new, all the materials it was built with, all the coolant, everything was new, so it stayed nice and clean, and you can leave it for 160k if you want for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, whatever it was. But you don't do that again because you never get it all out. I hope I'm being clear. Anyway, this is at that point, there's nothing else we can do. So what we do, we put the two caps in and then start up and let it idle and warm up to temperature, or you can drive it gently. If you know 8 litres has gone in there, you're not going to cook the engine. It's basically been bled from following this system, and just drive nicely until you get to full operating temp. Then we're going to bring it back, pop the bonnet, have a look, make sure it's not empty, and if it looks about the right level, we're not going to take the cap off while it's under pressure and hot. We're just going to let it cool down, check it when it's cold, and then top it up to the full line, or even maybe a little bit above it next time it's cold, and that's where we want it. I like it about the seam, just under the seam, regardless of all the marks. Mine, I like to keep it there, but in the hottest temperatures when you work it hard, it is going to push that excess out and it'll end up on the full line, funnily enough. Anyway, guys, I think that wraps up the video, almost. Let's see. Actually, we're not done yet. When you do these up, bring it around till it goes complete into that position there on the correct turn, and that's where it goes. Now we're going to give it a quick rinse and go for a bit of a drive. After a 10-minute drive, that's where it's at, right where we like it. He said he's got some coolant at home, so we're going to leave it at that. We're not going to overfill it because he's got something to top it up if it's needed. And that wraps this one up. Hope you liked it. Hit the like button, subscribe, turn the bell on. Catch you on the next one. See ya.